Good evening, everyone. This is Nitya Ramachandra from the NR Sports Show. This is episode 885, joined by a really special guest. His name is Erick Strickland. He's a former NBA point guard, shooting guard. He has a show called The Strict Nine. You can find it on all social media formats, and he is also part of Cerebro Sports, which we'll get to also. And he went to Nebraska for college. He's from Alabama. He was undrafted, but he had a great NBA career. So we're going to get to all of that. But first of all, Erick, I just want to say thank you for joining the show today. It's truly an honor. And how are you and your family doing?
Everybody's doing good, man. I transitioned to Florida probably in February. So adjusting from Texas to Dallas, Texas to now Orlando, Florida area. And it's been actually amazing. Everything has been good. My kids, I got 2 kids now in college. So, I'm feeling pretty good about where things are. My youngest is, getting ready to go into high school. So family's good.
Yeah. So I want to start off with your childhood growing up, and what was it like growing up in Alabama? When did you get interested in the game of basketball? And did you have any like role models growing up in the NBA?
I kind of have a unique situation. Although I was born in Alabama, I was probably there till I was about 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. My father was a military officer, retired as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. So I kind of was having trouble. They divorced when I was young, probably when I was about 6. Mm-hmm. And so started to kind of see some things in elementary school, getting into trouble a little bit. And, thank God that my father stepped up and I went to live with him. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up living in Montana for 3 years at Great Falls at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and then went to Lompoc, California, which is, I actually happened to, play youth football against a phenomenal Oakland Raider player, Napoleon Kaufman. We kind of grew up together. And then I left there in like 88 time frame when I was, probably going in the middle of 7th grade. And my father says, let's go to Nebraska. We got some things in Nebraska. That's my phone. I need to turn that on. But I'm sitting in the office right now, so I'm still getting kind of calls. But so we had my father, it was like, let's go to Nebraska. I'm like, no, I don't want to go to Nebraska, but we ended up going. So that's where I did my final years of junior high and playing high school basketball and football and baseball there, and then going on to have a career after that.
Wow. Yeah. So for you, obviously, what was it like playing multiple sports, and what did you learn from? What was the experience like playing football and basketball?
So I actually, my story with that, I was very gifted athletically, and I was a very big kid. So just to give you an estimation, in the 8th grade, I was about 6'2". So I'm 6'3" and a half now. I thought I was going to be 6'6". I just grew really quick. So I was very strong. I was a very physical kid. I was naturally strong. I'd always played up to include, like, for example, I just was very gifted. And so like I dominated different leagues. So if I was playing in the 4th and 5th grade league, they just got to a point where they're like, I'd be the MVP as a 4th grader, and then they would just be like, no, you my dad was like, he'll dominate this league. So he would always play me up, or he would take me to the base to play against men. So I was always used to doing that. Even in football, I played 1 year in the Bantam leagues only because of my age, but my size, of course, we dominate, we win. Then I jump a whole league and go to the, next highest league to the top league. And,
oh, wow.
and played well. And all of those things helped me throughout my career. So getting to Nebraska, playing football, being an all-stater, my sophomore and junior year, you don't play I guess they had junior high from 7th to 9th grade. So yeah. I wasn't in high school to play as a freshman. So my first year, it was all-state receiver, and all-state receiver my junior year. Didn't play my senior year, all-state basketball my junior and senior year. And I decided not to play my senior year as football, even though I was being heavily recruited, top 10 receiver at that time in the country, I was a weird kid. I was looking at collective bargaining agreements, and I just came to the conclusion that football wasn't going to be it for me
Wow.
because of, you're giving up all your body and everything. But then at the end of the day, they can say, we don't want you, and your contract is null and void. So I didn't like that. And then I played 1 year of baseball at the advice of a coach of mine. He was like, Strick, I think if you play baseball, I think you'll get drafted. And I was like, yeah, right. Hadn't played all the way from, I think I was a freshman. I don't think I played up until my senior year. Played 1 year, hit 483, and first round Yankees wanted to take me, but they wanted me to just focus on baseball. And the Florida Marlins came and said, it was their first year in the expansion. So they said, we'll take you in the middle rounds and you can do both. So that's kind of how my career ended up throughout high school. And I ended up playing 2 years in the Florida minor league system.
Wow.
They wanted to move me up, but they said, hey, we need you to make a decision. And I made the decision to get baseball track. Not that I'm smart. Right. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a smart dude. I wasn't smart. One of my coaches just said, hey, if you go and it doesn't work out, come back. I said, cool. And it worked out, obviously.
Wow, that's amazing. What a great story there. And for you, did you ever think of playing both baseball and basketball at the same time? Because now you see players playing multiple sports now at the same time. But did you ever think to yourself back in the day, you could have stick with both of them at the same time, or was it for you only one sport?
Great question. But I think it's a little bit harder to do when you're talking about basketball and baseball because they overlap so much. So you have a lot of that overlap. Obviously, they go into, if you get deep into the playoffs, you go into October when basketball would be starting. You would put yourself at a huge disadvantage, especially in the NBA, if you're not in training camp. I mean, you just can't leave baseball, jump right into basketball and think. Now it's a lot easier with football because football's ending. You can go right into spring training late and still make up for it. So that basketball baseball combination was just too difficult, and I think that's why they told me it's time for you to make a decision.
Hey, you chose the right path, man, because you had a hell of a career in the NBA. So
yeah, it was a hard trek, but it did work out. And I mean, when I look back at it, I attribute it to everything you asked about. I attribute it to all of the things that I learned in each sport. And I think each sport, I would not trade it for the world. I think they all gave me something. I look at the football aspect and the things that my dad did and taking me as a 12-year-old kid to play with men. I think I look at the football as a young kid. I was very astute at looking at patterns, looking at formations, looking at all these different things with regards to what they're doing and seeing what they're trying to accomplish. Who is their best player? Who is their go-tos? Who is their, and then being able to read those and react, as a player. I think that's what made me good. I was gifted. If the ball was in my area, it was caught. I just was one of those natural kids that did that. So I took the physical aspects of football and applied it. Then the baseball aspect, what I took was the cerebral aspect. Baseball is very cerebral. And I say that to mean that if a ball is hit, if you have a person on first base, the ball is hitting the gap, you've got a whole bunch of different options that can take place depending on where the ball is hit. Right. It's never just a systematic thing based on a systematic play. It's understanding kind of who your pitchers are. It's understanding, what this batter is, what his stance is, what he likes. Is the pitcher going to be pitching him off speed? So therefore, kind of how to set yourself up in the field and create those opportunities. So it's very cerebral. And that's what I applied when I brought to basketball was a cerebral aspect. And then I took all of those and implemented them into the one sport, which is basketball, which helped me to make it.
Wow. Yeah, so this is a two-part question. I want to ask you about your recruiting process. Obviously, you picked Nebraska, and how many offers did you get before choosing Nebraska, and what was it like playing for Nebraska?
I had a lot of people that was in early from my sophomore to junior year, but kind of around my junior year, I had an idea that I was going to go to Nebraska. I saw their success. I saw how well they did. I think my senior year, they ended up being in the top 10 ranked in the country. I could see the program was just kind of on an upswing. It felt right. We had a good recruiting class at the time, and we had a top player out of Utah and Jerron Boone and Andre Woolridge, who was a top point guard at the time. I think he was second rated behind Jason Kidd. And then me, and then Terrence Badgett, who before him was highly ranked and touted and recruited as well. So we had a group of us guys who kind of knew each other, and we were like, man, what we see what the 5-5 did, but let's create our own. And so we just felt like that. We just felt like let's create our own and create our own destiny and make our own mark. And that's why we all kind of chose Nebraska. So I knew early on, and that's why I think it actually helped me, because a lot of people dropped off. They kind of knew where I was going. So the recruiting process was pretty much sealed. I could just go and play my senior year. Didn't have to worry about dealing with calls and all that stuff and fielding all that recruiting process.
Yeah. So by the way, I just want to say thank you to your father for his service. By the way.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you. Yeah. We support the troops and everything that they have done to preserve us for our freedoms that we are able to have here today.
Yeah. So what did it mean to him when you chose Nebraska to play at college? Because he's the one who both of you moved to Nebraska from Alabama, and for him, what did he mean to you? For him, when you chose Nebraska to play there?
It was kind of crazy. So shortly after I kind of started, shortly after I went to Nebraska, he got transferred to the NSA, which is out in Maryland. So he was pretty much most of my career in college. I mean, he did come to some games and stuff like that periodically, but most of the time he was in Maryland. So he was proud. He was proud of what I was able to accomplish and do. But he didn't get to see it up close and personal because he was away in Maryland. But my mom ended up moving, I think, either my junior or senior year, so she got to see a lot of me play. But yeah, I was pretty much kind of there alone.
Wow. So I want to ask you about your draft experience. You were undrafted, and how tough was it for you sitting there waiting with your family, waiting for your name to be called, but your name didn't get called, and obviously you got a opportunity with the Dallas Mavericks, but take us through that experience. How tough is it just sitting there waiting?
Well, obviously, I didn't get called to New York or anything like that. I didn't get invited to the combines or anything like that. And a lot of it is because, it was very traditional. It was very traditional with regard to the play styles. If you were a certain height, you were a point guard. If you were, 6'4" to 6'6" or 6'7", you could be a 2. You had those anomalies in Penny Hardaway, and you had those anomalies in Magic. You had those anomalies with Tracy McGrady's and so forth and so on. But for the most part, it was very traditional. You had your Stocktons, you had your Tim Hardaways, you had your Nick Van Exels, you had very traditional point guard type guys who could score, but nonetheless, point guard. Allen Iverson kind of broke the mold. So it opened up a door for a guy like me, but being, and then also 96 was one of the top draft classes of all time. Right. If you really just look top to bottom, I mean, shoot, I can understand. They did a redrafting. I think in the redrafting, I ended up either 26th or 29th in the redraft. But which isn't, that was a great fulfilling testament to what I was able to accomplish. But I would also say that it was tough. It was tough knowing that it didn't, you didn't get the call in the sport that you love the most. But what I will say though, is it drove me because in that traditional mode, I was just a player. Right. I wasn't a player of any style or type, or I just was a player. So at that time, those were rare and few between. You look now and you see all those PJ Tuckers and those, Draymond Greens, and they're just players, you know what I mean? So they don't fit in a traditional position. And I just was before my time, and I just happened to make my mark by way of injury. So during camp, I was there at that time with Jason Kidd and Jamal Mashburn and Jimmy Jackson. So I was there with the big three, the original big three. And
Also, Michael Finley too, right? Michael Finley.
Well, Mike came in the trade, but
okay.
originally,
yeah,
I was on the original team before being sent to the CBA and coming back.
Oh, okay.
On the trade of Michael Finley and that whole crew. That's when I came from the CBA and came back. That's how I was able to integrate myself into the, it actually became a starter to finish the season as a starter that year. But yeah, that's how it kind of transpired. I was there with those groups, and I was able, through injury, I think Tony Dumas got injured. George McLeod got injured. There was guys that were injured. So I told coach, I had to basically initiate. I said, hey man, listen, I'll guard Jimmy, or so I took the challenges. And when they saw that I could handle myself, you know what I mean? They didn't think, Jimmy was very strong, 6'5", big, strong, post you up, but they saw I handled my business. So they were like, wait, there's something about this kid. You know what I mean? So that's when I kind of made my niche that I can play in multiple positions and guard multiple players up and down the board.
Well, so I want to ask you, obviously you got the opportunity with the Mavericks, and like you said, you got to play with Jason Kidd. Now he's a head coach for the Mavericks. It comes full circle now. And also you got to play with Sam Gazelle. I'm just curious, how do you guys maintain the minutes, because you guys had so many point guards on the roster that year?
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing about Don Nelson. He was a mad scientist. You know what I mean? He could throw multiple units at somebody. I'll just give you an example without having to explain the full details of it. He was a mismatch creation genius. So there was, to give you an example, I think they might have won the championship that year in the lockout season, maybe, or but we actually beat them, I think, once. We beat them twice, maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe. But Don Nelson saw we was getting killed. I mean, it was a mismatch nightmare with Tim Duncan and David Robinson in those positions. And you had Sean Elliott. They were very long. Then you had Mario Elie, and then you had Avery Johnson. So what he did though was he says, okay, I'm gonna rotate Dirk and Dirk in at different times, but my big is gonna be AC Green. I may have Dirk, Sid Sabalas, either one of those 2 combinations, switching in and out depending on what we needed, and Michael Finley, and me and Steve Nash, right? So Steve, because guarding wise, Avery Johnson is someone you didn't really have to overly guard. So he put him on Steve on him. He put Michael Finley on Mario Elie. He put Sid on Sean Elliott. And he put AC Green on David Robinson, and I covered Tim Duncan. And we ended up winning that game. And it was because Tim's advantage was off the block, post up against 4s, to where he would face you up and shoot that bank shot. But with me on him, I could press him. Right. And yeah, you may shoot, but I'm going to be up under you. And if you put it on the ground, I might get it. So it took that advantage from him. So I'm strong enough. You could play physical back then. It's way different now. But back then I could physically, match up with Tim and keep him off the block to where he couldn't get to an advantage. And then just box out and rebound, just do my thing. And we actually beat him. So that's just an example. That's the type of stuff that Don would do. So he would put 3 guards in there. I'd be the 3, and I'd make guard Scottie Pippen, you know what I mean? Or something like that. So, he would do some weird stuff. He actually, one time I got so pissed, Sean Bradley was just getting dunked on by Shaquille. And I was like, now mind you, and I was just being like bench angry. I wasn't expecting him to do what I said. I said, effing put me on him. And he freaking did that. He put me in there against Shaq for like 5 minutes. I think I got a charge or 2 and got him out of the game. Because of course Shaq's gonna look at me and he's like, what I just was doing, you're gonna put him on me after what I was just doing to these other guys?
That's crazy.
So I'd leverage him up, and then I'd say, okay, I know what Shaq's going to do. And then I would shift and take charges. That's how I got him.
Man, Donnie Nelson, man, I think he's the one who started the small ball.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he was doing it up in Golden State with that crew up there with, Sprewell and, Mullen and Tim Hardaway. So, yeah, he's been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, I had Samaki Walker on my show last year. He was on the show last year.
Good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Good friend
So
of mine.
what was it like being his teammate? What was he like as a teammate? And also, you played with Dirk, too, obviously. What was it playing with Dirk, too?
Samaki was just very raw early on in his career. And later on in his career, he figured it out, what he could do to be successful in the NBA and end up getting a championship out of it, So early on, it was tough because there was a lot of expectation for someone like himself to fill a void at that 4 position that they expected him to. And he was still so raw and was still trying to figure it out. And it just took him some time. So, but he was a great teammate. I mean, we had great times together as rookies and putting bags on planes and getting food and stuff for veterans. we was in that together. So it was good. Dirk coming into the league, Dirk was very light at the time. So you could tell though that if once he gets it, that he's going to be a dominant force in this league. So there were times when Dirk would try to post me up and I'd have him at the 3-point line. I'm like, no, Dirk, you're not coming down here. But he was a fun teammate as well. And we all enjoyed the process. And I wish him well, in his new position and in running some things over there with the Mavericks. So I'm wishing him well.
Yeah, so now you transition to the Knicks. I'm a big New York Knicks fan, and obviously that year you played with Allen Houston, Mark Jackson, Chris Childs, who
not Mark Jackson. Mark was gone. I think Mark was in Indiana at the time. But it was Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward.
Oh, Charlie Ward, yeah. So
yeah.
I actually I had both Charlie Ward and Chris Childs on the show last year too, and I got the whole gang pretty much. But for you, what was it like playing in New York, the Mecca, the most famous arena in basketball, and you got to play with great players also in New York?
So in college, we ended up winning the NIT my senior year. So in doing that, we playing in the Garden during those semifinals and finals games just really invoked something in me. So getting a chance to play in New York in the city was it was a phenomenal feat. Even though I wasn't there very long, I was there, I think, until January and then got traded, or, the end of January and got traded right before the All-Star game to Vancouver. But the time that I was there, it was phenomenal. And there were a great bunch of guys. I got the chance to hang out with Larry Johnson regularly and Spree and Camby. We hung out regularly. So I was in a good crew with them. And of course, Chris Childs at times, he was married, so he didn't get to hang as much as some of us single guys, but it was good. It was good.
Yeah. So I'm just curious because most players don't take trades well, or if they move to team. I know sports is a business. A lot of movement, a lot of players move. But for you, in your situation, you got to play with great franchises in the NBA. And what was it like just moving from team to team? But you got to learn different personalities in different locker rooms and different teams.
Yeah, I mean, getting a chance to play in the Eastern Conference with some of the perennial teams that have great, history, and Indiana with their love for basketball and their IQ for basketball was phenomenal. It was great. Boston, of course, the legacy and the histories of what Boston had did and Red, and being there before Red passed. It was all arenas are smoke free, and then you come into the arena and you smell these freaking sweet, strong smelling cigars, and you're like, oh, Red's here. You know what I mean? And it didn't matter. Red didn't give a dang, and nobody questioned him about it, So that was fun. And playing with that bunch of guys, a bunch of ragtag guys that were put together other than, Antoine and Paul. But to do what we did and getting to the conference finals when everybody expected us to be at the bottom tier of the East was fun. Of course, New York.
Yeah.
Vancouver was probably the worst experience
Oh.
in my whole career.
Hmm.
Of course, the Mavericks was great.
Indiana,
but
Milwaukee.
yeah, Milwaukee. Yeah, Milwaukee was cool. I think it was interesting because it was a bunch of young guys with a few old guys, with me and Kukoc and
Okay.
Bryant Skinner and a few of us old guys, and a bunch of young guys with Dan Gadzarich and Michael Redd, who was on fire, Desmond Mason, who was in the dunk contest and did well, very athletic. And so yeah, it was a great, and I was very honored that they labeled me a captain. You know, that showed a lot to be labeled a captain with that bunch of guys, even with Kukoc and those guys. It was awesome.
Yeah, so I want to ask you about Boston here real quick because I had Kenny Anderson and Joe Johnson on the show too, and
Anderson and who?
I had Kenny Anderson and Joe Johnson on the show too.
Oh yeah, JJ. Yeah. They should have never got rid of him.
I know.
That was one of the biggest mistakes.
Yeah, ISO Joe. But I want to ask you though, what was it like wearing the Celtics uniform, playing in the TD Garden? Obviously, you got to play with Paul Pierce, one of the greats. But what was that like? And being competitive every year.
Well, when we got there was a lot of they didn't really the city didn't really know how to take us because they had 3 draft picks, so there was a bunch of rookies with Joe and Joe Forte and Kedrick Brown, and then there was a bunch of ragtag guys. Kenny Anderson was getting a little older at the time. Eric Williams, just a hard-nosed guy, came over from Denver. We had Vitaly Patapinko and Tony Battie. We were small. Like, we didn't really have your traditional big man. Tony Battie was maybe 225, soaking wet. Vitaly was short, but very strong and stocky. Then we had an anomaly in Antoine Walker, and then Paul Pierce was just a beast. So but defensively, we were killers. I mean, we moved on a string. We was always there together. We just got after people and shut people down, and that's what made us successful. So that was fun. And then once people start saying, we got something here, because I think we ended up with the second best record in the East that year. They were like, we got something. So they turned kind of a supportive but stoic kind of atmosphere to what we call at the end of the year, it ended up being called the jungle. Because every time they would play Guns N' Roses and welcome to the jungle, and it would the fans would be freaking crazy. It was raucous in there. So that was fun. Whenever we got to turn up, the playoff atmosphere was absolutely phenomenal as well.
Wow. Yeah. So what would you say your best moment was in your career and your most funniest moment?
Probably the funniest moment was just I think it might have been my rookie year or maybe my second year. You're in there, you're getting your scouting reports, you're going through everything, what your assignments are and everything. And I put my uniform on like I normally do, but for some reason I put my uniform on backwards. I put not my pants, but I put my shirt on backwards. So it was Strickland, not the Mavs. It was Strickland. So that was probably one of the funniest moments. And Shaq and Fool, Shaq and a Fool.
He put it up there?
Yeah, they killed me on that. So that was a funny moment. I couldn't help but to laugh. But probably my best moment was either my rookie year against the Seattle Supersonics, which was perennial at that time. Ended up getting 28 against Gary Payton. That was awesome. And then just being a starter who was making an impact on the team. I think my greatest team moments were the Mavs and the Celtics. Those are the greatest team moments.
Wow. So now looking back at your career, obviously over 3,000 points, over 1,000 rebounds, over 1,000 assists. You play with great franchises, great teammates, great coaches. And how grateful are you to be in this position right now and being not getting drafted, but proving people wrong? And you had a heck of a career, like I said before. So how grateful are you to be in this position and still be involved in the game and you have your own show now called The Strict Nine, and you're part of Cerebro Sports now too.
Yeah. So starting the radio show was, I'm really a back behind the scenes dude. I mean, I don't have a very strong social media presence. I do pop on, do things every now and then, but I'm not as strong at it as most people are. But so when asked to do the radio show, the Strict Nine show, I didn't know how to take it at first. I was like, nah, maybe I'll tie into somebody. But then he started saying, just have a voice. You're very cerebral, i.e. Cerebro Sports. You're very cerebral in your thinking. You're well spoken. You understand the dynamics. You're not just the basketball guy. You know sports. You know what I mean? So that made it a little bit easier for me to jump into that. And then Cerebro Sports came about. I was approached by Ryan Gerardo, who is the CEO of Cerebro Sports, and it looks totally different than when we first initially visioned it. We sat down in the Starbucks, talked through it, and the vision is what hit me. And what hit me about it was being able to identify young players. This is what drove me to it, but being able to identify young players who, who are not founded. Because what happens is a lot of people end up playing in these AAU circuits. You've got the Adidas circuit, the Nike circuit, you have then the Under Armour circuit, but everybody can't.
Right.
So this is how a Ja Morant gets missed, right? Because all of the coaches are looking on course 1, 2, and 3. Ja Morant's on 7 and 8, not because he can't play, but because he's just whatever his AAU team just doesn't have that status, so they're not on the main court. And so Murray State happens to be on that court going to the bathroom, and you see this kid dominating. You're like, wait, who's this? We need him. And coach calls him, get over here immediately. So that's kind of the vision. I'm like, I don't want another kid like myself to get missed. So what Cerebro Sports is that they're changing basketball by allowing everyone to see who a player is in a simple and fair way. Wow. Not just and it's just based on numbers. It's not like we're going to tell you who to pick or tell you how long this person. We give you the numbers, and we just give you another assessment. We give you another element to make decisions off of, because for so long the sport of basketball has been determined by what you see. I see him, he looks physically, strong and able. He looks very athletic. He looks like he's going to be able to progress into something. But we want to add numbers to that, which algorithms are also weighting, your levels of play. So in the Catholic League of the Blind, you average in 45, 15, and 10. You know what I mean? But in the AAU circuit, you're only averaging, 10, 4, and 2. Right. Against so your competition. So we know which levels of games, and they're weighted out in order to make determinations on, really, can this person progress? Like we did numbers on Luka Doncic. We knew who he was going to be. Yeah. You guys may not yet, but we knew by his numbers. So we help them for recruiting teams. It's very good for, organizations and universities, especially through COVID, when they were trying to do what we're doing, right? How am I going to recruit you by doing a Zoom call with you, right? So we kind of help you to take the approach of not shooting a machine gun and just spraying and hope you hit. Right. You take a sniper rifle, and when you miss on one, there's another one out there with a similar archetype that you may be able to find. We're going to help you find them by way of the numbers. So for players, they can also see how they range, similar to what you have with, NBA 2K. Right. It's very similar. Our systems are to that. So then coaches now have an opportunity to see what they need to improve on, to see areas. So you can look at numbers. So say, for instance, you got a team that is number 2 in the league. You're number 5 in the league. What do we need to do to move up in the league? So you can take numbers, run the numbers of what the power forward on the number 2 team is doing, and then sit down with your players and say, how are you going to beat that? Because if you don't beat that, or you don't progress to become better than that, we're going to stay where we are. Wow. And you can have those type of conversations. You can also have those conversations with moms now, and moms and dads who think their sons is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And now you can sit down with them and say, here's the numbers. You see what I'm saying? And here's how they match up. So those are one of the things that we do for universities. We also do them for marketing organizations, who you may want to sign, what maybe their art could be, so you can make decisions on, do you want to invest in this kid as far as your marketing? You know what I mean? So we can work with a tremendous amount of people. We're not just limited to basketball. We're looking to go in other sports as well. So that's what's Cerebro.
That's amazing. That's awesome what you guys are doing. If you guys need help, we're down too. Our team is we like to help people out. So if you ever need help with your company, we're down to help too.
All right, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So a couple more things here before I let you go. And so with the numbers you have throughout your career, do you think you deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Because I think.
Oh, no. You know what, man? Listen, because of just my personality.
Yeah.
Right? My personality is a back, just behind the scenes guy. Although when I go out and do things or whatever, I like to enjoy myself. I'm not, a shy guy per se, but I'm really a back end guy. So a lot of the times people ask me, do you miss it? I'm like, no. My season ran its course.
Yeah.
I like what I'm doing now. I like, what I'm doing with Grayman Construction, where we're building, units and projects and commercial and residential stuff all over the state of Florida. I like what I'm doing as an investor with Cerebro. I like I like business. I like relations and networking. I like that stuff. So I felt that I really wouldn't be able to do the stuff that I like to do had I ascended to that level. You understand? I like to go to the movies. I like to go in the movies, and because I'm 6'3", you may say maybe, but you don't know unless you are a freaking basketball fan.
Yeah.
Unless you're a basketball fan, you would not know. So there are people that are fans, but mostly they don't. And I like to go and sit down and have dinner and have a drink and have a glass of wine or whatever, and no one knows.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think Hall of Fame. I mean, I was Hall of Fame at the university, so when I go back to Nebraska, it's different. Yeah. So I get an understanding as to why I'm glad, I didn't ascend to that level, because I didn't want that smoke.
Yeah. So before we get to the last few things, what was it like? What was it like seeing the Bucks winning the championship this year, finally? And then the next part to this, what was it like playing against the late Kobe Bryant?
With regard to the Bucks, I was happy for the city. I was happy for the organization. I was happy for Giannis.
Mm-hmm.
And I was happy for the whole team, because they truly were a team.
Yeah.
Right. They did it. As far as I'm concerned, that's the way I would like to do it.
Right.
The way they did it. They didn't go out and try to get all these super teams put together. They took a bunch of guys, gelled together, played the game the way it's supposed to be played. The right people stepped up. Those that, when there was some faltering, the bench players stepped up, and you end up winning a freaking championship. So I love the way they did it. You add a couple more components. Everybody goes in the summertime, come back, get better at a specific area that they may have a weakness in, and they may be able to compete again. I still think Brooklyn is tough.
Yeah.
But they were able to take them out. I mean, the injuries is part of the game, unfortunately, right? So playing against Kobe, of course, me and Kobe came in the same year. We battled at summer leagues against each other.
Oh, wow.
Of course, I had to cover him. It depended. I think most of the time they put me on Eddie Jones, or they put me. I did have to cover Kobe if once that crew left, the Nick Van Exel, that crew left, so I did have to cover Kobe. But it just depended on which matchups they had and who they felt comfortable and so forth and so on. Then maybe there was somebody else they wanted to keep. Sometimes we had game plans where they didn't care that Kobe scored. They just didn't want. They didn't care Shaq and Kobe scored. Let Shaq and Kobe get 60. Right. You know what I'm saying? but we don't want Derek Fisher and Rick Fox and those guys to go off. So there are times where we just said, we're going to let Kobe go nuts. We're going to let, because if Kobe goes nuts, Shaq don't get the ball as much. Right. Then that means, we were using strategies like that because they're a matchup problem. So,
you got to neutralize. You got to try and neutralize one star, or even two, but try and neutralize one star. But that's like for Brooklyn. With the healthy team, I think they're going to be unstoppable this year for Brooklyn. But yeah. I want to ask. Yeah, I know you also got to play against Allen Iverson. What was that like, competing against Allen Iverson?
AI is a consummate. I respect him to the utmost. He is a consummate professional. He's hard nosed. He's a fun loving guy. I think I just love the parts in the games because I'm sick. I was 6'3", 225. Strong, and Allen's 6'1", 165. Wow. So I'd have to go to the referees at the beginning of the games and be like, "Yo, man, listen." And every time he saw me go to half court when we played him, he would make his way to half court, and I'd be like, "Hey, listen, Allen is 165 and I'm 2. So when he bumps into me, he's gonna fall. Yeah. Don't be giving him that stuff. Oh no, Strick, no, you come over. That'd be fouls. No, So every time we would have that battle, man, it was that was the fun stuff with Allen.
Wow. Yeah. So the last few things here before I let you go, our team is part of this foundation. It's called the Hugh Jackson Foundation. We're trying to help him prevent human trafficking, making sure the community stays safe, the kids stay safe. So I'll send you the foundation so you can go check it out.
Hey man, that'd be good, man. I'm down with that, man. That's more rampant than we know.
Yeah.
900 thousand kids a year don't go missing just because. Yeah. So that's awesome that you guys are doing that, man. So kudos to you, and I'll look to see how to support you.
Thank you. And then last thing here, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Just continue to, stay strong and stay in the fight. We know it's tough. We know it's not easy. Just continue to do what you do well. We support you. We're for you. We wish you well. We know it's tough going into environments that, your life sometimes could be a jeopardy. So keep up the fight.
Well said there. And there it is. That wraps up episode 885 with former NBA point guard, shooting guard, Erick Strickland. Now he has a show called Strict 9, and he's part of Cerebro Sports. Go follow him on all social media formats. This was awesome. This was an honor. A great conversation, Erick. Thank you again for coming on, and we would like to have you back as a returning guest at some point so you can meet the full team. But keep up the great work, and like I said, if you guys need help with their company, we're down. But you have a great weekend and stay safe.
Thank you. Yep. Look forward to talking. All right.